Well, hello again, and I'm John, and I'm presenting this series on the unseen worlds in art, which has fascinated me all my life in one form or another, particularly those paintings and drawings and stained glass of some of the unseen worlds of the human that you find all over the world. But here also with those magical paintings by Monet of the Lilies or the Nympheas at the Orangerie in Paris. Well, here I'm looking at what seemed to me to be the unseen worlds of the nature spirits of his garden and of the natural worlds around. And here is actually, of course, a painting by him of the water lilies at Giverny. Now, as part of this journey, I went to Giverny in the southern part of Normandy to look at the lake with the lilies and also the gardens and where Monet lived, and then also went to the Orangerie, which I've actually been to several times because it has those wonderful vast canvases of the lilies that Monet painted in his studio at Giverny. Now here is a picture of Monet on his Japanese bridge, and it's a wonderful quote from him that had so much meaning for myself when I was doing this particular presentation. As Monet says, I've caught this magical landscape, and it's the enchantment of it that I'm so keen to render. Of course, lots of people will protest that it's quite unreal, but that's just too bad. Now, this for me was a very personal journey, and I was taking this journey into the enchantment, into Monet's enchantment, where I discovered, surprisingly to me at first, what seemed to me representations by Monet, whether consciously or unconsciously, of the nature spirits of the world around that he was portraying in his wonderful pictures, as I'm going to be describing as I go through the presentation. Now, of course, this is a very personal journey, so from other people it may seem a bit unreal, but I have to say that, well, I accept that, but for me, it's what I saw and what I felt, and it's just too bad, and I understand if you see things differently. So, okay, let's get on. First of all, I visited the lilies at Giverny myself, and here's a photograph that I took of those lilies that Monet painted. They're still there, they look very much the same. It's just as if he'd walked away, and they've done a wonderful job at Giverny preserving this lovely lake of lilies. Of course, is another photograph that I took of the gardens, Monet's gardens, which again are beautiful and full of colour. Absolutely marvellous and full of flowers. And here's a quote from Monet. I'm following nature without being able to grasp her. I perhaps owe having become a painter to flowers. And here in the garden you can understand what he might have meant by that. And here's a painting by him of those flowers of his time. Colour is my day-long obsession, joy, and torment. And so Monet takes us away from the more physical representations into this extraordinary, magical world of colour that he portrayed. And it's quite an extraordinarily moving journey that we take into this world of colour. Now, my first connection to the world of energy and the unseen worlds lying within his paintings was a journey I took into Monet's mysterious energy of colour. And here's a quote from an art critic that highlighted that there's much more going on in Monet's paintings than just a picture of some lilies or some water. The Nympheas are not paintings for museums, but a door to contemplation and to the sacred. Well, this is when my journey really took off, because I was looking into the colours of the Nympheas in the Orangerie, as just seen in that last picture, and suddenly there in front of me seemed to be this extraordinary face of the river god, which you can see on the right-hand side of this picture, I hope. The eyes, the nose, the hair, the face, the cheeks. Now, what was even more extraordinary was that I'd actually seen in the Tuileries outside the Orangerie a statue of a river god that seemed to almost exactly represent this extraordinary image that I found in Monet's paintings inside the Orangerie. The two just seemed to be so close. I was quite amazed, quite amazed. And as Guy de Maupassant said, "Ah, if we had other senses, how many more things would we not discover around us?" And so I thought, well, yes, that could very well be true. Maybe my senses have taken me into another world that Monet was connecting to. And then a step further, because I was looking at one of his paintings of an evening. I think it was a sunset over the lakes. And there in front of me seemed to be a dragon, a kind of fire dragon. There's the body in front of you in the yellow, and then the head bending backwards, back from the body, with the nose and the face somehow mystically appearing out of this picture. And this had connected me to another picture I had seen and found on the internet, which is another picture of the fire dragon, which looked remarkably, incredibly similar. What to make of this? Well, somehow it seemed that the representation of the living elements of air, fire, water, and earth were appearing here. And here is another quote from Guy de Maupassant. The Nympheas evoke a sort of timeless nature in which the pictorial elements are precisely the four elements of air, water, earth, and fire. And I began to think how right Guy de Maupassant was, but possibly Monet had gone even further and connected to the living nature of those elements too. And as I continued to look at these beautiful paintings, my eyes were caught by these lovely little blue, kind of darting, moving, vibrating little shapes in the water. And it started me to think about what was said in the guidebook about Monet's work, which was the abandonment of reality, or rather, the simple transposition of appearance in favor of a deeper reality. And so looking at this deeper reality, I had the sense on this journey into the unseen worlds and elemental worlds of nature that maybe Monet somehow had painted the water spirits that lived in and amongst the lilies of his lake. And again, looking further at the artwork, there seem to be more faces, and here's one in the middle, and if you look at it, perhaps you can see the eyes and the nose and the face and the hair and the mouths, and there seems to be lots of faces hidden in amongst the clouds, the elemental spirits of the air perhaps here. And again, as the guidebook said, what Monet was seeking to do was to shake off the mechanization which intelligence imposed on the elusive and ineffable truth of life, and to re-establish a spontaneous contact with it. So, as I thought about this and continued my own journey, well, there seemed to be further elemental living things in the clouds. And here's a picture of Monet in his garden, dreaming in his garden. Wonderful picture, isn't it, of him as an older man. And here again is that lovely quote, "I've caught this magical landscape, and it's the enchantment of it that I'm so keen to render." And indeed, as I've been looking at the Nymphae, it was indeed totally enchanting. And then moving on to another part of the painting, of the water, I saw this extraordinarily kind of writhing element going across the whole painting, with a kind of face at one end of it, and scales, and it looked strangely just like a water dragon, just like another painting I found on the internet depicting the same kind of idea. Perhaps you can see it here, like I did. And as Georges Clemenceau said, who's a great friend of Monet's, Monet painted the action of the universe in its workings. And here I had a sense of looking in through Monet's eyes into the living action of the universe in these natural spirits. And here again, as I continued to look at these wonderful paintings, well, there just seemed to be more faces in the clouds. And I thought of Louis Gillet's comment, "In the charming idealism of the water lilies, the artist's thought has realized the highest degree of spiritualization." And it was indeed a magic journey that Monet took you into the world of nature, into the living world of nature as it appeared to be to me. And here's another wonderful picture of Monet at Giverny, the kind of age he was when he was making these paintings. And another wonderful quote from Georges Clemenceau, "Monet reveals to us elemental depths which without him we would never have known." And I felt that that was so true, that he'd opened up to me a vision of the natural world and the living spirits that are part of that natural world that you do not see in art in any common way. So I hope you've enjoyed this. As I said, it's a very personal journey for me. And here's a lovely picture of a little sleeping cat in Monet's house that I just couldn't resist. So there we are. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found the journey also inspiring for you too. Bye now.